Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. So as fans continue to kind of struggle to get the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, we are starting to hear about the possibility of maybe new consoles coming sooner than what some fans might have initially thought they would. This would mean that a theoretical PlayStation 5 Pro and maybe an Xbox Series XZ or whatever you want to call it might be coming in the next couple of years. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the video. And then also, a couple of beloved PlayStation games might have leaked out online, and we're starting to hear about a possible showcase for them as well. So we'll also be talking about that one a little later on in the video, so make sure to stay tuned for all of that. Per usual though, if you do find yourself enjoying the video, go and hit that like button below, and while you're at it, go and hit that bell notification and subscribe button as well. That way you can keep up to date with all of the latest gaming news. Beyond all that, though, of course, let's just go and jump right into the news, starting off with PlayStation Plus once again. So yesterday we talked about Sony possibly charging subscribers who previously got PlayStation Plus for a discount more money if they wanted to upgrade PlayStation Plus tiers. In other words, your previous discount was more or less nullified, which is just absolutely asinine and about the most anti-consumer thing that I've seen from a company in quite a while. There were several reports of this happening to PlayStation Plus subscribers over in Asia as the new tiers just launched over there. Well, we did get a couple of updates on this today, so we'll kind of go through this in sequential order here and how the events unraveled. Unfortunately, a support PlayStation Hong Kong email did basically confirm what was happening to many fans. They were charging previously discounted subscriber accounts more money. They were, in fact, wiping away fans' previous discounts. But later on in the day, we did get some good news as well. Thanks to the outpouring criticism that Sony has received, it does appear that they might be backtracking now. This has yet to be confirmed, but once again, we are starting to get several reports from fans right now that they are fixing the pricing, and it has reflected on their accounts, which coincides with their original discount. So all in all, this is actually really good news, and it does show you why you need to speak out on when a company basically just tries to take you for a ride. This is something that we have seen in the last few years. There's been times that these companies, they just make absolutely ridiculous decisions. Think back on the Xbox Live Gold price hike as an example. Fans back then, they spoke out as well, and they quickly fixed it. And that's what we're seeing right here for PlayStation Plus. And just as kind of an added bonus, it does appear that it will be fixed before it launches in other regions such as the West and in Europe. Now, we did also get a big release date today as well, though maybe not surprising per se, but Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 is now slated for its usual release window being at the end of this year, right around the holidays. So again, not necessarily a major surprise or anything. A new Call of Duty is pretty much expected to release about this time of the year, but now we do have an exact release date being October 28th. Modern Warfare 2 will be developed by Infinity Ward this year, and I think a lot of fans will be particularly happy about that. And it once again will be a cross-generation title, meaning it will release on the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One alongside its next-generation counterparts and PC. Now, that's actually a bit of an underlining story here, though, because this is the first Call of Duty game to release while Microsoft is in the midst of acquiring Activision Blizzard. So there are a lot of questions about whether or not this game could possibly launch directly into Xbox Game Pass day one this holiday. But at the same time, that really all just kind of depends on a couple of different things here. One, and this right here is the most important one, it ultimately comes down to whether or not Microsoft completes their transaction of Activision before October 28th. Now, this is something that we did talk about last week. Microsoft did state that the acquisition is moving fast, or at least as fast as it can given the size of the buyout that we're talking about here, and basically that they're at the midpoint right now. So the way that I look at this, and this is just speculation on my part, but for me, I would say that maybe this isn't necessarily impossible that the deal can be completed by then, but my prediction, my own personal prediction, has always been that it will be completed in early 2023. I mean, at the end of the day, this is still a massive acquisition, so I wouldn't necessarily get my expectations up too much here. But all at the same time, one thing to kind of note here is that Xbox, they did somehow manage to get Doom Eternal into Game Pass before the Bethesda acquisition was completed. So Xbox might be willing to write a check to Activision Blizzard for Modern Warfare 2 to come over to Game Pass this holiday, especially considering some of their recent delays and how that will impact them. But that is the other part to this. It's currently unknown on whether or not PlayStation has some type of deal surrounding Call of Duty, and that could actually play a part here. They have had the marketing rights for quite a while, though at the same time here recently, they did reveal their marketing partnerships and Call of Duty and Activision wasn't listed. So who knows all about that situation, but regardless of speculation, Modern Warfare 2 will release on October 28th. Now, unfortunately, we do have yet another delay to talk about today, and this is actually a very similar situation as to what's happening with Stalker 2 and GSC Game World. Even though Stalker 2 has yet to officially receive a delay, I do expect that announcement to come with them just now confirming that they've been able to resume development once again. Today, though, in a very similar situation, it was confirmed that Replaced is being pushed back into 2023, which is unfortunate for fans looking forward to this particular game. I actually think it looks really good. I think it has an absolutely beautiful art style, and this is also a game that's launching directly into Xbox Game Pass. However, due to the situation that's happening over in Ukraine, this is a bigger problem than just games itself. This has affected the employees over at Sadcat Studios, and several of the staff has actually had to relocate. Because of that, they did have to temporarily halt its development and have now just started it back up again. Hence the delay into 2023. This is actually a very understandable situation. Obviously, it's unfortunate for a multitude of reasons, but no more unfortunate than the overall situation that's affecting these employees and what's happening over in Ukraine. All I can really say for this is that my heart goes out to this studio, and just take your time. I absolutely wish them the best, and hopefully this game turns out to be just as amazing as what it looks. Next up, though, let's go and talk about the possibility of a new Xbox and PlayStation console releasing within the next 2 years. Yeah, we're already kind of having a lot of problems just getting this iteration of the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5, but nonetheless, this is now a big topic because this is exactly what TLC's forecast is. Now, if you don't know TLC, this is actually a popular Chinese electronics company that produces very successful TVs, and well, in a press event, they surprisingly out of nowhere said that they expect Generation 9.5 consoles to launch by 2024, possibly even in 2023. They claim to believe that these mid-generation consoles will be capable of 60 to 120 frames per second at a resolution of 2160p, that they'll also have the capability of 8K resolution, and that their GPUs will be the equivalent of an AMD Radeon RX 7700 XT. So that all just kind of sounds great on paper and everything, but one thing to kind of keep in mind here is that this is simply a forecast. This doesn't necessarily mean that they're privy to any type of inside information from either Sony or Microsoft. This is just what they're simply predicting will happen, that way they can prepare future TVs. But at the same time, this is a reputable and very successful company, so this has sparked a lot of conversation on whether or not this could actually happen. And I think that if you start to look into it, yes, based off the history of both Xbox and PlayStation, it certainly is a possibility. Though, and this is important, it's also very complicated this generation, which I'll kind of come back to here in just a moment. First, though, the reason that this could actually happen really just kind of comes down to the fact that Xbox and PlayStation are always working on new consoles and iterations to improve upon their original design. As an example, if you take a look at the Xbox 360, that's a console that launched back in 2005, and 2 years later in 2007, they also released the Xbox 360 Elite. This was followed up by several other iterations that generation, and the PlayStation 3 was much the same way. The PlayStation 3 launched in 2006, and then the popular Slim model released 3 years later in 2009. And this was also very similar to last generation, though they did kind of take things a step further with beefier hardware this time. The Xbox One and PlayStation 4 this time both launched back in 2013, and then 3 years later, the PlayStation 4 Pro released in 2016, whereas the Xbox One X, it waited a little bit longer and released in 2017. So with that timeline right there, it suddenly does become a realization that yes, we could actually see new hardware from both Xbox and PlayStation as early as 2023. Though, and this right here is the problem, it's much more complicated this generation than what we have seen in the past. We're still in a situation where neither the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox Series X has met that initial demand. We are in the midst of a chip shortage right now, so the supply chain has been struggling to keep up with demand as it is. So, I mean, customers are already having major issues, and we are hearing this problem will persist well into the foreseeable future. So you have to kind of wonder if Microsoft and Sony would actually want to launch new iterations in a climate like this. So because of that, and this is just my prediction, but I believe that 2023 is not going to happen. 2024 or 2025, to me, that actually sounds much more realistic and actually highly plausible, again, based off of their past history. I think for me, I'm kind of looking at this thinking that I feel like that there's just as much of a possibility that we get a slim model before we get a mid-generation refresh. These consoles, they're still pretty big after all, so a slim model might actually be a very welcome addition. But yeah, I'm kind of looking at this, and I'm thinking that 2024 or 2025 is actually much more realistic than, these consoles possibly releasing as early as next year. I just don't see that myself, but let me know what you all think about this in the comments below. Do you think that there is a possibility that we could see a mid-generation refresh as early as 2023? And what about 2024? Even then, I kind of look at 2024 as maybe being a little too early, but again, let me know what you all think about this in the comments below. Moving on though, this of course is the big rumor month as we head into those June showcases, and one rumor that has continued to make waves is a PlayStation showcase. Now, we've heard a lot of back and forth on this and what's happening with PlayStation next month. Are they going to have their big showcase in June or not? And well, we did just get another leak here, this time revealing a couple of beloved PlayStation games that might be revealed sometime here soon, and also when we might possibly hear about them. Okay, so this is coming from NGT account, which has a great overall track record of leaking information, and then Nick Baker, yet another industry insider over on the Xbox Era podcast, which has a pretty good reputation as well. So there's a good reason to believe that this could possibly be accurate, though at the same time, with any type of rumor, of course, take it with a grain of salt until confirmed officially. Nonetheless, though, Nick Baker on the Xbox Era podcast was talking about Sly Cooper 5, which supposedly leaked earlier this year, and he said that he does not expect Sly Cooper 5 to be announced this June. Now, this actually got a response from NGT account over on Twitter, and let's just go and check out the tweets here. Likely September, as I was saying since early March. By the way, the same source told me a few weeks ago that no big showcase was planned until September, which coincides another time an announcement in September. This source also thinks InFamou will be announced this year. So there you have it, and that's actually a lot of information right there. So according to NGT account, both Sly 5 and a new InFamou does indeed exist and could be announced as early as this year, though unfortunately, not this June. Now, this is something that we have talked about before. There's a possibility that Sony doesn't have a big showcase for next month in June, and that they might stick with what they did last year and have their big showcase in September once again. Several rumors have pointed to this, but things do kind of seem split right now on whether it will happen in June or September. It just all kind of remains to be seen by this point, so it's kind of hard to tell, but whenever it is, if they truly do announce both a new Sly Cooper game and also an InFamou game, yeah, I think that the wait will be well worth it. That will more than make up for waiting a couple of extra months here if it does end up being a September event. Now, in terms of InFamou, as far as I'm aware, we haven't actually heard too much about a new possible InFamou game up to this point. But as for Sly Cooper 5, this is a game that we've heard a lot about, and that it might be developed by Pixel Opus, the same studio behind Concrete Genie. I actually think that that's a really good fit here, and I do hope that this is true, but I guess we'll find out here sometime soon enough. Let's go and take a look at the poll of the day, though, and since Capcom recently kind of alluded to them maybe working on some Dorman IP, I went ahead and asked you all, what Dorman Capcom game would you most like to see get a new installment? And as you can see from the results here, this was actually a very close one, with most of you all just slightly voting for Dragon's Dogma, having 34% of the votes. Then followed by that would be Dino Crisis at 33%. Then below that you have Okami at 13% and Breath of Fire at 12%. There was also several other votes in the comments, including a new Marvel vs. Capcom collection. That'd actually be pretty cool. I had heard some things about Power Stone, a possible new Final Fight. That one's an interesting one. Onimusha, that one's cool as well. Darkstalkers, I would love to see that one return. But yeah, Capcom has a lot of franchises that they could work with here. But I am with you all on this one. I would go with Dragon's Dogma or Dino Crisis personally. On one side, I think Dragon's Dogma is one of the most underrated RPGs that we have seen within the last decade. I think this is a really good RPG that kind of has a little bit of Skyrim in it, and it also kind of feels like Shadow of the Colossus in a lot of ways. Just kind of the way the combat works, and I think that it was a really cool combination, and I would love to see them capitalize on what made Dragon's Dogma so special, and then just kind of take it to the next level with a sequel. I do think that Dragon's Dogma has a ton of potential, but at the same time, Dino Crisis, this is one of those games that I have wanted to see return for just so many years, and now that we have seen these remakes recently with Resident Evil 2 remake, Resident Evil 3 remake, I mean, they look absolutely amazing, and it just makes me want a remake of Dino Crisis just so bad. I think that this would just be the perfect game to remake, and I mean, if they do well enough, bring Dino Crisis back in a big way. I mean, we've had a lot of zombie games out there, but we very rarely seem to get a good dinosaur game. And I think Dino Crisis and actually having dinosaurs be, actually scary, I think that it was a perfect fit here. And I would love to see this happen. But yeah, again, Capcom has a lot of franchises to work with here. If any one of these games were to get a new installment, yeah, I'd be pretty happy. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode. But if you liked the video, don't forget to bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.